You know what? To make an honest assessment, if you're looking at it from that vantage point, of course, you're going to see that, it's from the Andy Reid regime. He's a guy that Andy Reid put his stamp on, and of course, he's going to be he's not the glitter and glam that we were used to with Chip Kelly. We have to remember at one point last year, Chip was the number 3 sports commodity in sports. Number 3, he was ranked number 3. So we have to understand that we don't have that anymore. At this point, we have to accept the fact that we're going to get Doug Pederson. He may be the boring pick. He may be the guy that didn't have a lot of glitter, but I will tell you this. He's a guy that's smart. He understands the game, number 1. Number 2, we really didn't have a quarterback coach while I was there in Green Bay. The offensive coordinator he was a quarterback's coach, but I'm going to tell you this. Doug Pederson is the one that helped out Brett Favre the most. When he went to the sideline, Doug Pederson is the guy that went over and discussed what was going on defense. And the offensive coordinator every once in a while would come by there. Doug Pederson is a guy that everybody in the locker room got along with. He's an easygoing guy. I just don't know from the vantage point of being a motivator if he could do it on both sides, or all 3 sides of the ball, because now he has to do special teams, defense, and on this case, the offense. He's a very sharp guy. Of course, he knows the system, but he also knows a little bit about defense. You have to know a little about defense, being the backup quarterback and trying to understand what's going on. But I will say this, he is the safe bet, and I think that's what Jeffrey Lurie is looking at. He's the safe bet. He's somebody that he's familiar with. He's a pick that Andy put his stamp of approval on. I think he still has that love affair for Andy Reid.
Barrett, obviously the backup quarterback a lot of times is the backup because he doesn't have the talent, but he has the smarts. Is this a guy who, in your opinion, knows the game, not just the quarterback position, but knows everything, studies it all, and that's why he's the backup quarterback? He doesn't have the skill set to be the starter, but they trust him because he knows where every guy on that field should be.
Yep, and that's what his job was. Being behind a guy like Brett Favre didn't necessarily mean he didn't have enough talent to start in the league. It just meant that Brett Favre was better than he was. When he did get from the Eagles, he did come to the Eagles. He was a starter. He groomed a lot of people. During his time when he was a player. People don't understand this also. He was a mainstay. He was a guy that really helped Darrell Bevell. Darrell Bevell is now the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. He was instrumental in his development as a coach. He was a quality control guy in Green Bay during that time period when I was there, and during this time period going up the ladder and being a good quarterbacks coach. He kind of walked him in, led him through, taught him how to understand what he was dealing with a guy like Brett Favre, who's not the easiest guy to get along with when it comes to the athletic talent that he has and trying to show him the way as far as being a good player. Of course, that Brett Favre is a guy that he's a gunslinger. He was the guy, I would say Peterson is a guy that slowed him down a little bit, made him focus on going through his reads, made him focus on running the offense the way it was supposed to be run. So he's also influential in that aspect also. Darrell Bevell is one of his disciples also. Really
interesting. Barrett Brooks with us, played with Doug Pederson. So, for those who don't think, and maybe it isn't an exciting hire, but do you think that this is a failure? I mean, do you look at this and say, whoa, what were they thinking?
I don't think it's a failure, but I will say this. I'm kind of mad that they didn't exhaust all the options. We didn't bring in any defensive guys as far as for a head coach. We didn't look at anybody. Lovie Smith was still out there. Of course, everybody wanted the defensive coordinator for the Panthers coming in, Sean McDermott, to come in. He had Philly ties too. This is strictly the safe bet for Coach Reid. He wants to settle this city down a little bit, settle his team down a little bit, grab the reins, and go with the safe bet. I'll say this. You're not going to find a guy that's going to outwork him. You're not going to find a guy that's, as smart as he is. If he's smart, he's going to go out and get the best coordinators he can get. And at this point, that's what he needs to be focused on once the season is over with for him.
Hey, there's some talk, Barrett, of Jim Schwartz, who runs Wide 9. When the Wide 9 was here before, I think Eagle fans, to hear that, they almost, it scares them to death. But should it? I mean,
I don't want to hear it either.
Well, I mean, Jim Schwartz has been pretty successful with that scheme. I would say that Schwartz running the Wide 9 is probably better than Juan Castillo running the Wide 9.
Well, Juan was forced into that. Of course,
Sure,
the D-line
absolutely.
coach for the Eagles at the time, they wanted him to run it. He didn't want to run that type of scheme. And I don't think we necessarily have the athletes to run that type of scheme. I mean, who do we have come off the corner? We haven't signed Curry back, so that's going to be instrumental if we do go into that system. I think if we just go into a plain 4-3, we have the athletes go out there and be very good at running that scheme. We have the linebackers to do it and the D-line that can, get movement up the field. I really think that Cox could really flourish in that. Curry could definitely flourish in that type of system. And Benny Logan could also do it. These are guys that are pretty good at one-gapping. They just happen to, be very good at two-gapping also when they were told to do it. So I like the fact that, if they do go to a 4-3, I'm in with that. I don't know about staying with the 3-4, but I'd rather go with 4-3.
I agree with that, too. I actually, the last couple of years, have kept saying I think they have better 4-3, specifically on the defensive line with Curry basically wasting away. And I think Cox would be a dominating interior defensive tackle.
You couldn't stop him. If he wanted to pick a gap, and that was his gap, you could not stop him from doing that. He's a guy that can get up the field, create penetration, and create a new line of scrimmage. It would be perfect for him to do it. In fact, he'd be farther along than he is right now. We all know he's a good player, but he'd be farther along as far as a threat and a dominant player if he was in that type of system. I think Benny Logan on the same hand. He's a little smaller as far as being a nose guard in this league, but in that 4-3, he'd be perfect to play the one gap, get up the field, and create a new line of scrimmage. I like them, them in that type of scheme. So hopefully they will go that way. But my biggest pet peeve is, who's going to be the GM, general manager? Who's the GM? And we're going to keep the same guy we have on that, Howie Roseman. Is he going to be the GM? Or are we going to bring somebody in that's a football guy? How much power will this guy have? What is Pederson going to do as far as his thought-making process? Will he have the power to bring in the players he wants in here? Those are all decisions we talk about also. And what if Kansas City wins this weekend? If they win this weekend, that's just another week that they're getting caught behind as far as bringing in other coaches they could really interview. There's a lot going on with this Eagles team right now, and I don't know if we're going in the right direction right now. But I wish we were in a situation where things were more concrete.
Are they in a better spot with Pederson, or should they have just tried to go forward, give Chip another opportunity to prove that, hey, the first year didn't go great as the GM, but we're going to give you one more opportunity?
No, I think they made a pretty good decision. From that vantage point, I don't think that Chip really knew what he wanted to do from that standpoint. He didn't want the power that he was given, and then when he got called out on it, I think he wanted to go in a different direction. Then, we can look at this. I don't think he's changed in the past 18 days that he's been fired, or 18 or 17, or however many days it's been. For him to go and get another head coaching job is crazy. I don't see why the 49ers did that. They're basically just getting a more egotistical Harbaugh and Chip Kelly coming in. So what type of decisions are they making? How are they going out there and really evaluating coaches when they're virtually getting the same person they just had? They just ran out of town.
What kind of guy is Pederson? Likable guy, easy to get. I would assume. He seems like the backup quarterback. Always seems like the likable, easy to get along with guy. But sometimes I guess there's backup quarterbacks who think they deserve and have an attitude like, "Hey, I'm better than the starter, and I should play." What kind of guy is Pederson?
Well, he knows his role. He definitely understands his role, and he's willing to assume whatever role it would take to win a game, win a championship. And then, that's all you can ask from a player. From a coaching standpoint, a lot of the guys I've talked to from Kansas City say that they love him as a coach. They'll go out there and play for him. From the offensive side of the ball, I don't know about the defensive side of the ball. I know when I played with him when he was a backup quarterback, he was a guy everybody liked him in the locker room. He got along with everybody. He joked around a lot. For the most part, he was just Brett Favre's right-hand man. Those two were, two peas in a pod that got along very well. And I think that symbiotic relationship those guys had, a lot of Brett Favre's success stemmed from him being able to communicate with Doug most of the time. So, if you look at it from experience, the standpoint of experience, no, he didn't have a lot of experience at the coordinator position, being with Andy. I think Andy called a lot of the plays, but when given an opportunity, he did all right. But you also have to look at this. He had a lot of experience in the league, and from an X and O standpoint, watching what to do, what not to do. He had some great quarterbacks that he played behind and helped coach, and McNabb and Brett Favre. From that standpoint, he made both of those guys better. So if he can make those two guys even better than what they are and what their skill set presents, then I think that he can bring anybody in and make them good. And also, if he puts a good staff, he can also make the team good also.
Yeah, and I think that is a great point, the staff. Who's he bringing in? Because, again, 2013, I think fans were very excited about Kelly. 1999, not very excited about Andy. And I think you would say 99 went better than 2013.
Absolutely. I took the year 11, year 12, Andy Reid more so than Chip any day.
All right, Super Bowl champion Barrett Brooks, weekday morning from 6 to 8 o'clock there on the Comcast Network. Breakfast on Broad. I'm sure plenty more on the Eagles offseason. And now the next move, Sam Bradford. We'll get into that at another time. All right, pal, enjoy the weekend.
Take it easy now, bro.